Oh, hey there. Didn't see ya. How's it going? It's me, Kamal, the integrals guy on YouTube once again, and today we have yet another absolute beast of an integral. We have the integral from 0 to infinity of arctangent sine alpha over x plus cosine alpha dx over 1 plus x squared, with alpha being a real number between 0 and my very cursive pi over 2. Okay, cool. Now, how do we approach this thing? The first thing that does come to mind, given all the parameterized integrals we've solved on this channel, is to apply a Feynman's trick approach that is differentiating under the integral sign. But that begs the question of whether or not we can take the derivative operator and the integral operator and switch them up. In other words, is the switch up even mathematically valid? And to answer that question, we're going to look at dominated convergence for this integral. So take a look at x. It's a positive real number on our interval of integration. And that means x plus cosine alpha, with alpha being bound over here, is going to be a positive real number as well. And sine alpha itself is going to be a positive real number. So that means we have the arctangent of something positive, and we know that the arctangent of something positive is going to be less than pi over 2. So we have arctangent of sine of alpha over x plus cosine alpha less than pi over 2 on this interval, on this domain for both x and alpha, that is. And this implies that the target integral I is less than pi over 2 times the integral from 0 to infinity of whatever is left, and that is just a dx over 1 plus x squared term, and we know exactly what that converges to via an arctangent antiderivative. That is just pi over 2, which results in a pi squared over 4 term, and voila. Via dominated convergence, we do know that this integral converges for all values of alpha over here, and we can in fact switch up the order of operators when we differentiate. So let me just copy this down here. Thank you, technology. And we'll apply a derivative operator, terribly sorry about that, derivative operator with respect to alpha to the whole thing. So that results in I prime of alpha on the left-hand side, and on the right we have the integral from 0 to infinity of now the partial derivative, because of the Leibniz rule, of arctangent of sine alpha over x plus cosine alpha dx over 1 plus x squared. And because we're differentiating partially with respect to alpha, that means this 1 over 1 plus x squared term is just a constant. Now for the arctangent derivative, I will need some more writing space, so I have 1 over 1 plus sine square alpha over x plus cosine of alpha squared. And now for the chain rule, I have to apply the quotient rule. So we have x plus cosine alpha times derivative of sine is cosine minus sine of alpha. Derivative of cosine is negative sine. Okay, cool. And of course, we need the square of the denominator in the denominator. So it looks like we have some nice cancellation taking place, and I'll write this as 1 over 1 plus x squared times 1 over, on expansion, x squared plus cosine square alpha plus 2x cosine of alpha plus sine square alpha, and the cosine square and the sine square do combine to give us a 1, which is cool. And of course we have this term in the denominator that should cancel out with this thingamabob over there. So the result is, well, looking a lot more cleaner. And we have up top here x times cosine alpha plus cosine square alpha, terribly sorry about that, plus a sine square alpha term, and again they combine to give us a 1. And that's pretty much it, although I might as well just write this out given that I've written this bar anyway. So there's the denominator again, and of course now we have the complete cancellation, and we can finally rest. Well, not yet. There's still plenty of work to do. So all of this implies that I prime of alpha has this cool looking form that is the integral, terribly sorry about that, the integral from 0 to infinity of x times cosine alpha plus 1 over x squared plus 1 times x squared plus 2x times cosine alpha plus 1 dx. Okay, cool. And now we take the simplified picture and make it more complicated because, well, why the hell not? I mean, I do have this factor down here in the denominator that does contain an x cosine alpha term, so I'm tempted to expand using 1/2. So let's just write it in that fashion and see where it gets us. So I'm going to write this as 2x cosine alpha, but I could also use an x squared term, so why not? And I could use a 1 as well. So I'm going to expand using 1/2 as well. And what I've done here, essentially, is just add a couple zeros. And 1/2 of the 0 is half of x squared, so that's another negative half x squared here. And then I need a negative 1/2 term. And where did the 1 go? It's right here by the law of conservation of ones or some weird scientific mumbo jumbo. So we have x squared plus 1 in the denominator, and we have another quadratic that is x squared plus 2x cosine of alpha plus 1 dx. Okay, cool. And now we can separate out terms and see what cancellations we get. And for some reason, I've forgotten how to write the number 2. Anyway, so the first term should be the integral from 0 to infinity times 1/2, that is, of canceling out these two quadratics involved in the cosine, yields dx over 1 plus x squared, which is nice because we know exactly what this thing equals. And of course, I could factor out the 1/2 and write this as 1/2 of x squared. So we have another negative sign, 1/2, integral 0 to infinity of dx over the cooler looking quadratic, x squared plus 2x cosine alpha plus 1. And I need some more writing space because then we have a 1 over quartic polynomial term, which is dope, and that is the integral on which we will focus the majority of our efforts. We have integral of dx over x squared plus 1 times x squared plus 2x cosine alpha plus 1. Okay, cool. Now, the first of these integrals is, of course, trivial. That is 1/2, so we have a pi over 4, but then we have a negative 1/2 of I sub 1, which itself is a pretty fun integral to evaluate, but I will skip over it entirely because we sort of get that integral for free anyway from the integral I sub 2. I sub 2 does look a little bit daunting, but to be honest, the integrand just needs a partial fraction decomposition, so we have 1 over x squared plus 1 times x squared plus 2x cosine of alpha. For some reason, I'm just not able to write cosine of alpha today. Anyway, so we have ax plus b over x squared plus 1 plus a cx plus d term over x squared plus, terribly sorry about that, 2x cosine alpha plus 1. So this implies that 1 is equal to ax plus b times x squared plus 2x cosine of alpha plus 1 plus cx plus d times x squared plus 1. Okay, cool. And from here, it's simply a matter of expanding the multiplication and comparing the coefficients of the linearly independent basis vectors, x to the 0, x to the 1, x squared, and x cubed, and then you get the following results. So a here, as for my notes, is negative 1 over 2 cosine alpha. B here is 0, conveniently. C is 1 over 2 cosine of alpha, and D here is, again, conveniently equal to 1. So this implies that the target integral I sub 2, which is supposed to be ax plus b, now b is just a 0, and I am left with a negative 1 over 2 cosine of alpha, integral 0 to infinity x dx over x squared plus 1, and I will preemptively expand by a factor of 2 and balance that out with a 4 here, so I can invoke a logarithmic. I can invoke an integration via the logarithm. And what else do I have on my plate? Well, I have the cx plus d, and d is again equal to 1, so I could just write this as plus 1 over 2 cosine alpha integral 0 to infinity x and a plus 2 cosine alpha term, and that should suffice. And I'm left with x squared plus 2x cosine of alpha plus 1 dx. That looks kind of familiar, does it not? And it's exactly this familiarity that we're going to make use of via some more algebraic manipulation. So let me just pick a different color. It's been a while since I used the yellow color. So let's take this term. Specifically, I'm talking about the integral, and write this as integral 0 to infinity. And I could use a 2x over here to invoke the derivative. So yeah, that's exactly what I'll do. I have 1/2 of 2x plus 2 cosine alpha, but that means I only have 1 cosine alpha, so this is where the other cosine alpha term went. And I have this thing in the denominator, our quadratic term that has been following us quite a bit. So this yields a 1/2 of the integral from 0 to infinity of 2x plus 2 cosine alpha over x squared plus 2x cosine alpha plus 1 dx. And again, I'm going to need some writing space for the other integral. So that is just a cosine of alpha, and that cosine of alpha term in the as a coefficient is actually super useful. And I again need some more writing space. So we have dx over x squared plus, terribly sorry about that, plus 2 cosine, no, it's not 2 cosine, it's 2x cosine alpha plus 1, which, reminder, is actually your I sub 1 term. Okay, cool. And we have a 2 cosine alpha term outside, so this would be plus 1/2 I sub 1, and the target integral had a negative 1/2 of I sub 1, which is dope, which means, again, we have some really cool cancellations taking place. So the result here is just going to be, terribly sorry about that, 1/2 of the logarithm of x squared plus 2x cosine alpha plus 1, with the limits being 0 and infinity, which I shall not evaluate right now anyway. I plan on evaluating it with this term up here. So all of this implies that, terribly sorry about that, all of this implies that I sub 2 is just a 1 over 4 cosine of alpha now. I can just factor that out. So I have 1 over 4, again, terribly sorry about that, 1 over 4 cosine of alpha term times the integral from 0 to infinity of 2x over 1 plus x squared dx, plus all of this junk, which I will just write as one combined logarithm. So we should have log of x squared plus 2x cosine alpha plus 1 over, what exactly? Okay, there's a negative sign, so that means we have over x squared plus 1, which is, again, pretty convenient given rates of growth. And we are left with a plus 1 over 2 cosine alpha times cosine alpha is just 1/2. And this is, of course, our target integral, our other target integral, I sub 1. Okay, cool. So this implies that I sub 2 is just equal to 1 over 4 cosine of alpha times the logarithm of, okay, wait, I can actually take this x squared plus 1 term separately, and then I have a 1 plus 2x cosine alpha over x squared plus 1, which actually shows the reasoning very clearly that in the limit as, just let me write this out. So in the limit as x tends to 0, we do have a log 1 term, and in the limit as x tends to infinity, this whole term again goes to 0 because the quadratic will grow faster than the linear term, than the linear monomial. So again, we have a log 1 term, so we have a 0 minus 0 term, which is just a big fat 0. So let me just crash this down to 0. And this implies that I sub 2 is actually 1/2 of I sub 1. But returning back to the target integral I, recall that the target integral was just equal to pi over 4 minus 1/2 of I sub 1, and then I sub 2 is just 1/2 of I sub 1, so there's some lovely cancellation. And wait a second, this was not the target integral, this was the derivative of the target integral function. And this implies that the integral function I of alpha is just pi over 4 times alpha plus a constant of integration that I will call b, because we all forget the plus c in the examination, so we might as well give it a shot. Okay, so now what exactly is an initial value condition that we can make use of? Recall the target integral, which had a sign alpha up top. So notice that as alpha tends to 0 from the right, I of alpha will also tend to 0 from the right. Okay, cool. So plugging in fact, why is there an why is alpha supposed to be greater than 0? Of course, alpha can be equal to 0 as well. Terribly sorry about that. I believe someone may have pointed that out in the comment section already. But the limit is, of course, correctly written. It's supposed to approach 0 from the right, and I'm just being super pedantic right now. Okay, cool. So at alpha equal to 0, we have I of 0 equal to 0, which implies that our constant of integration is 0. And this implies that I of alpha just turns out to be pi over 4 times alpha. And recall that this is valid for alpha bound between pi over 2 and 0. But what about the case of alpha between pi over 2 and pi? So that is a little homework problem for all of you watching at home and in the park and at school. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you. See you next time.